to GlobalSpa Wellfest 2021. GlobalSpa is India's first homegrown wellness magazine covering various aspects of life and bringing it to the readers in print and digital format. To all of you, I'm Purva Aggarwal, the founder and CEO of Good Piggy, ambassador of Women in Tech India, and a business strategist, delighted to share that I will be moderating and will be the host of today's special discussion on the topic financial wellness, assets, budgeting, and stress management. So before I go ahead, I must welcome all our panelists who are tuning in. Anupama, Neha, Devika, thank you so much for making time. I think all of us are joining in on a busy weekday, but nonetheless, before I go ahead, let me also introduce you all to our audience. Devika Kamboh is a certified financial planner, professional who founded Sohum Financial Planning in 2019 after moving a previous business, Kamboh Financial Planning, from New York City to Pagosa Springs. Sohum in Sanskrit means to be in balance with the universe. She intentionally wants to create this experience and state of complete well-being for her clients, starting with a sound financial plan as the foundation to reach their financial goals. As a 20-year-old industry veteran, she focuses on complex financial planning issues for clients that cover estate planning, investment, wealth management, tax planning, insurance, risk management, retirement income, so on and so forth. What a wonderful, background to this discussion. Welcoming Devika.
Thank you.
Our next panelist today is Miss Anupama Bhargava. She's a financial strategist and a money coach with an experience of over 15 years helping individuals manage and create wealth through tailor-made strategies. A certified financial planner, she's a partner at BK Taxation and Investment LLP, a 30-year-old company that offers quality wealth management solutions. She has been a speaker at leading business schools like MDI, Amity International, educating people on achieving financial well-being through effective financial management. She believes in leading a wholesome life, and she is also her hidden talent is a swimmer. So welcoming Anupama as well to this panel.
Thank you so much, Purva. It's a pleasure being here.
Our pleasure to host you. Moving on to our next panelist is Neha Misra, the CEO and co-founder of the FinLit project, an IIT Delhi and STPI Chennai incubated financial and fintech literacy startup. She has more than a decade of experience in technology and finance and has worked for corporates and startups in India, USA, including the Wall Street and New York. Neha is a SEBI and NISM impaneled security market expert. Neha is an advisor to the board of governors at IIM Visakhapatnam. In addition to this, she is a global speaker, having spoken at multiple international platforms like Women Tech Conference, Code for America, Dell Women's Entrepreneur Summit, Think India, etc. And definitely we welcome her in terms of being an advocate for financial literacy in this panel. Welcome, Neha.
Thank you so much, Purva. What a pleasure to be here and also to learn from my fellow panelists and you. So thank you so much for the invitation. Appreciate it.
I think all of us are really happy to be here. And on that note, I must congratulate that I think it's a pleasant change today to see an all-women panel. And I am no less proud to see that, when we talk about finance and being an inclusive industry, we today are hosting this topic of financial wellness with all women speakers. On that note, I think let's introduce the topic to everybody. Financial wellness, we're talking about assets, budgeting, and stress management. I think financial wellness is well known to be a person's overall financial health and, absence of money-related stress in anybody's life. So as a result of this, we are looking into expense management, and this topic is a very, very important part of an overall, well-being of a person, consisting of physical, mental, and financial wellness. So on that note, today let's start understanding this topic deeply with our panelists. And I think the first question that comes when we talk about financial literacy and financial wellness is, I think very much to the fact that is financial literacy the base of financial wellness, and I am of a belief that it is. If yes, maybe Neha, would you like to tell us how that is from your experience of spreading financial literacy everywhere?
Thank you so much, Purva. I think that's a great question. For me, a lot of people equate literacy to just education, and then they say, it really doesn't matter and it not really is the foundation. But the way we look at it is we always say that financial literacy has three components, and we call it the A, B, and C of financial literacy, wherein the A stands for financial attitude, the B stands for financial behavior, and the C, which we always say comes in if your A's and B's are already correct, is financial capability. So if you have the right attitude, it could be a desire to learn, it could be a desire to know about, where are my taxes going? Am I paying my taxes on time? Am I sort of investing in the right resources? But it usually starts with that first step. And more often than not, the problem occurs, wherein we say that the majority of population is not financially literate, happens because people are scared to take the first step. So it really isn't about, the immense investment choices. It's really about saying, I can do it myself. So it really has to start with financial attitude. And I think that plays a pivotal role in how financial literacy pans out in our lives.
Definitely. I think, ABC is something really easy to remember. I definitely take that away, Neha, from you. And you mentioned about tax planning and budgeting, all of these things being basics on which, financial literacy and financial wellness kind of, coincide. So on that note, maybe Anupama, you are a specialist when it comes to tax planning, budgeting. So would you want to also, enlighten our audience about what is the importance of learning the basics of tax planning? How complex can this subject get? And, the better understanding you have of it, how can you create wealth from the same matrix?
Yeah, thank you so much, Purva, for asking that question. Firstly, I must compliment you for raising this very important but often neglected topic on financial well-being on this forum. Generally, you can hear, people talking about physical and emotional well-being all around, but nobody mentions or little is said about financial well-being. This is unfortunate because this is just as important, and this actually contributes to your overall well-being of an individual. So financial well-being does not mean to have $1 million in your bank account. It rather is like having, a confidence of having been able to meet your day-to-day financial goals, like day-to-day expenses, or long-term goals like your children's education, or having been able to lead a comfortable retired life. So there are a number of factors, but you spoke about tax planning and budgeting. And I also personally feel that they are very strong pillars, which are also the stepping stones towards a worry-free financial life. Now, tax planning simply means that it's a process of becoming tax efficient and ensuring that you have a minimum outgo of tax. Now, tax saved is money saved, and that much more money in our pockets. While taxes would be inevitable, we have to pay taxes. But the good news is we can actually reduce it to quite an extent. I would like to bring about, there is the incidence of taxes in two ways. One is on the income that we earn through our salaries and other sources. Now, this incidence of tax can be reduced vastly if we can take all the possible tax breaks. The other incidence of tax is on the income that we earn from our investments. After paying taxes, whatever we invest. This also can be vastly reduced by opting in for instruments which are tax efficient. Budgeting, coming to budgeting, is the other pillar. While taxes can control your tax outgo and can reduce, tax planning can reduce it, the budgeting can actually control your cash flows. So when we do it on a regular basis, we can have diversify our expenses into fixed and discretionary. Ideally, one should have not spend more than 50% of their income into expenses, which are of a regular nature. And ideally, one should also save a little 30% or maybe lesser than that into long-term savings. So now, once you align these two things, I have no reason to believe that a person cannot be financially worry-free or be financially enjoy financial well-being. So that is what is my 2 bit on the tax planning and budgeting. One must focus on it.
Thank you so much, Anupama. I think talking about taxation and talking about income management, expense management, a lot of that, I think on a regular day basis is connected with how we manage our cash flow, because somehow, the income, or when you talk about expenses, are part of that being, and in terms of financial well-being as well, it definitely is successful only when it is well managed in terms of the cash flow that we need at a particular time period. On that note, Devika, would you like to probably talk about how do you manage cash flows for clients, and how does in most cases when we talk about assets or in terms of long-term investing, then market itself plays a very, very important role. So what are your 2 cents on these elements?
So I'll circle back to what Neha and Anupama mentioned, and I'm going to rephrase it in the context of cash flow management, right? So when we talk about taxes, for example, because it's directly related to your cash flows, you have 3 ways of managing your taxes. And I'm going to use the US analogy since I'm based here in the US, but it applies globally. So there are 3 ways you can manage your taxes, which directly impact your cash flows or your personal disposable income. One is you will take tax deferral strategies, meaning, hey, if I can defer the taxes that I owe today, and I get that time value of money from all the compounding that my money gets, then that allows me to have that opportunity cost is not lost, to be able to realize other more attractive investments that can then, if I'm paying a tax, depending on whatever the tax code is down the road, I'm able to actually benefit from all that money that I would have actually lost in the payment of taxes today. So that's your time value of money, that's your tax deferral. The second way you would manage your taxes and therefore also positively impact your cash flows is tax favored strategies. So Anupama talked about investments. When you look at investments versus your ordinary income, taxation is different. Typically, in most global economies, including India, you have income taxes that are higher than capital gains taxes. So when you are looking at saving income and you're saying, hey, I'm going to go look at a stock, I'm going to look at a bond, I'm going to look at a mutual fund, whatever have you, is this being taxed at an ordinary income tax bracket like a bond typically is on the interest income? Or is it getting taxed at a capital gains bracket, which is much more attractive and lower? And is it long-term capital gains? Is it short-term capital gains? So you can go into all those intricacies, but that again impacts your cash flows directly. The last factor is tax-free. So in all 3 examples, tax-free, tax-deferred, or tax-favored, we are not talking about avoiding taxes or anything illegal. So people should be cautioned about understanding that, subtlety. And tax-free is basically examples like municipal bonds. So what does tax-free mean? So if I was living in the state of New York, and I'm living in Manhattan, let's say, so I have a New York City tax, I have a New York State tax, and then I have the US federal tax. Now in India or in another country, you may have a similar parallel, but if I moved to Colorado where I am right now, or if I'm in New Jersey next door, I don't have a city tax. So now I have not only taken out one more tax component by just simple strategizing, I can also then, invest in municipal bonds, which are typically triple tax-free, or they can be at least federal and state tax-free. So just with these simple little tweaks and just being aware of your opportunities and your options. So, when we talk about being a knowledgeable investor or an informed investor or an informed consumer, these slight strategies come back to your cash flow. Another thing that both speakers talked very nicely about were needs versus wants. So I'm just rephrasing what they said. My needs are, hey, what do I have to pay out every month, whether I'm a millionaire or whether I'm a teacher or whether I am a nonprofit volunteer? All of us have something called personal disposable income, which is directly impacting your cash flows. So what is personal disposable income? Personal disposable income is if I'm making $100 of income and my taxes are $30, and then my rent, utilities, clothing, food needs, all my needs are adding another $50, let's say. I have $30 left to do any kind of saving, investing, or cash flow management, because we talked about being stress-free and we talked about wellness. So now that $30 you have to figure out, I'm sorry, Anupama, I didn't meet your 50% goal, but let's say it's $30 left.
No,
so from that $30,
yeah. Can I interject?
Sorry, go ahead.
I also meant
Yes,
the 50% is your expenses after paying off the taxes, what you carry home. And in India,
Okay,
there's a tax
then I'm ahead of the
slightly
curve.
different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Then I did better. All right, so from my $30, I am now going to have what is called an emergency fund. So an emergency fund is directly linked to your financial stress, and I'm literally whittling down to this is important because this is not a US phenomenon. It's affecting everybody who is having any kind of financial activity in any factor, whether you're an earner, whether you're a supporter, whether you're a homemaker. So that $30 now has to help you plan for your retirement, maybe your children's college, maybe a mortgage that you're paying, a car finance, depending on whatever your lifestyle is. And then that also has to contribute towards current cash flows. So let's say I am somebody who is looking to change careers. And I know that if I leave my current job, I lose benefits X, Y, and Z. I lose the contribution that they make towards my retirement plan, which is another pre-tax option. And I also have the risk factor of moving into, let's say, a startup situation where, hey, creativity is great, future income potential is great, but what is my contingency planning? That is your emergency fund. So what I typically advise my clients, and this is even when I'm training social workers and nonprofits, I always say, don't put yourself in a pressure situation where your decision-making becomes compromised. Because when you are under financial stress, you will make a choice out of desperation instead of proactive behavior. So if I had about 3 months to 6 months of cash flows, not only will my job search be less stressful in this example, but when I'm being interviewed by different companies, I'm coming with my best foot forward rather than, hey, I'll take the first job that comes my way. Because this could be a situation where you're laid off. It could be a situation where you have lost a family income earner and suddenly you are being brought as either a female income earner or a male income earner, but you're now coming to the forefront and suddenly decisions are in front of you. So cash flow management, a big component of that is an emergency fund. Something that, holds you over during a medical emergency, a financial emergency, so that any decision you're making is not coming from a point of duress. It is coming from a point of calm, rational, balanced decision making. So I hope, Purva, that answered your question.
Definitely. I think that was a very, very interesting take, Devika, on not just cash flow management, but also how do you prepare for unforeseen circumstances. That could be any sort of emergency like a COVID-19, etc., which you don't see coming, but definitely how all of that plays part in terms of financial stress and well-being. All right, I think so. Reeling back to Anupama, on the fact that if you're talking about all these cash flow management, etc., and a person is all set in terms of doing this, then what is the role of active management in creating this wealth and in maintaining this wealth? So Anupama, would you like to throw some light on active management?
Yeah, sure, Purva. Devika, I must compliment you. You took out some very good points about cash flows and like planning your investments, and also about taxation. Now here, when we talk about active management, the investment world is dynamic and is ever changing, and so are our financial goals. They too keep evolving over lifetime, all throughout our lifetime. So obviously it becomes necessary to align our investments and our assets or wealth portfolios to these needs. To my mind, there is no fill it, shut it and forget it kind of mechanism when it comes to investments. A well-managed portfolio, which is monitored and actively managed, delivers better returns through outperforming the benchmarks as compared to randomly picked up investment portfolio, or which is not a passive portfolio, which may or may not meet our needs completely. one needs to be nimble-footed. One continuously, if one has to align to the dynamic markets as well as to your own financial needs and an asset allocation that we choose. So one has to definitely shift between these things actively. The process of active management begins with identifying the most suitable option, which is most suited to our needs amongst the so much of options available in the market. Then there comes the implementation and incorporating into our particular portfolio seamlessly, and then actively managing and monitoring it, tweaking it wherever necessary along the way to ensure that we get the optimum returns. Managing taxes too plays an important part, as Devika has brought out very nicely, that the capital gain tax is definitely lower in whether it is in India or it is in US. Definitely we are paying lower taxes on the capital gains as compared to what we pay on our incomes. So taxation plays an important part, when to exit, ensuring that we are having the benefit of long term if possible. Again, as I feel that the wealth creation process needs to be taken in totality and not taken as a one-time exercise. So it's an ongoing process with active management all along. Coming to the markets, there are different opportunities and challenges which the market presents to us. Finally, the choice translates into a good or a bad performing investment portfolio. And these can only be harnessed through active management. So active management of a portfolio definitely plays a very important role when we are talking about creating wealth or creating an asset portfolio.
When we talk about financial wellness and creating portfolios, assets, I think these are all decisions which happen within a family, within, let's say, between partners. Even individuals take these decisions. And on that note, I don't know, but I'm helpless to bring this topic up. But women themselves, is it true that they perceive financial wellness and the topic of financial well-being differently than men? And I think that is something I'd like Neha to put some light on when you're talking to different people about financial literacy. How are your experiences about women and financial wellness?
No, thank you so much, Anupama and Devika, for highlighting those very important aspects about, tax planning, investments. Another aspect is insurance, which, we'll all, of course, come to in the due course of the discussion. But you're right, Purva, when we began this discussion, all of us gave ourselves a hooray that this is an all-women panel, whereas at the same time, the ground reality is not really the way it should be. I mean, of course, the dynamics are changing, but more often than not, even today, if you ask women, to take certain decisions, more often than not, they come back and say that, I'm going to ask my husband about it, I'm going to ask my brother about it, or my father takes those decisions for me. So, they don't really, even though they have the knowledge, there might be times wherein they know what they're talking about, but that confidence is missing. At the same time, men, even though they might be wrong, they have the courage to stand up and say, I had this person in my program today, and he was very confidently saying that regular mutual funds are the ones you buy directly. And I kept telling him, no, this is wrong. And he said, no, I know about it. So that's the difference. And I think I keep telling women in all the programs that we do that you have to become a little bit more confident. If you've read Sapiens, I think the way we behave is often because of the way we've been, the way generations before us have been perceived and the way they've developed. And that's where women have been on the back foot, taking care of families and nurturing them. So it becomes a little bit of a confidence issue for some women. But at the same time, women, when they start doing it, are more adept at it. I've seen women, especially there's a certain category of women who sometimes leave the workforce, or they take a little bit of a sabbatical, trying to take care of kids and family. Those are the ones who are very, very good at it. I'm a military spouse. My husband works for the military. So we have a whole community of women. And in that community, you will see that women who, husbands are away from them, when they're taking those independent financial decisions, whether it's about their children's educations, serving what loans to take, who to reach out to, they actually make the better decisions. So I think it's just about giving women that impetus and push to say that know you can do it, and when you're doing something, you're right. Even though people may doubt you, you're right. Even though people may say that this is not a right investment, you're absolutely right. So today in India, we have some really amazing women who are actually making quant funds work the way they are. They're actually stepping up their game. So I think, the dynamics will definitely change. I was very happy to see today in the program that the girls were coming up, on front, and they were saying that, no, I know what this is about. I know how SEBI behaves, and what the SEC is, what the NASDAQ 100 is. In fact, one girl even said that I know what the Russell 2000 is. So I was rather happy about it. I said, oh, that's really, really nice that they know about those indices. So I'm sure in times to come, and of course with programs like these giving women the voice and the platform, dynamics will definitely change, but we'll make it happen, Purva.
Yeah. I really appreciate that, as being the ambassador for women in tech, I think it's in general, not just technology, all aspects need to be included. I met Devika in one of those lobbies where we are picking up a lot of social projects to also work on to see how different aspects of life can also be inclusive. So very briefly, Devika, if you would like to perhaps, also talk about how financial well-being, financial wellness should be something that is an extension of what Neha just said, also should be an inclusive topic. So any 2 cents on that, and then we move on to our top 3 round.
Sure. So I wanted to give a quick comment on something, but it'll just tie up. I always like to tie up the connectivity between the speakers. So as Neha and Anupama pointed out, women actually, if I'll give you 2 names, since you're also women in tech, Purva, Madam Curry, right? Madam Curry was never given the recognition that she deserved, because each time somebody else in the male world would get the accolades, and then these women, now with the Me Too movement and all this other good stuff happening, are now coming to the forefront, and now they're going back a millennia and saying, hey, these were the women who actually did these discoveries in science, math, technology before they were given a voice. So I think to Neha's point, it's not even I don't think it's even a confidence issue, it's a conditioning issue. So even if you go to our era of our grandfathers and our great-grandfathers and our great-grandmothers, what used to happen in the farming communities is the husband or the physical male or bread earner, because it was a physical job at that time, would earn an X amount of money, but when they would come home, that money would be handed to the spouse. So the woman in the household, whether or not she was in a professional, as we say, careers, she was the house finance manager, and she was the house chief operating officer, chief, CEO, and everything all rolled in one, just was never given the recognition for it. So it's more a matter of recognition and acknowledgement than they've been doing it for millennia. Our grandmothers, my grandmother, I'll use her example, was barely, 16 years old when she got married. She was given an education till 8th grade, but her street smarts was second to none. So my granddad might have been more educated, book smarts, as we were talking in the beginning of the talk, but you can't be taught street smartness, practicality, multitasking. These are all female traits that come naturally to us. And then something very interesting that Neha had talked about and Anupama had talked about earlier. So, we were talking about behavioral differences between decision-making for women and men. I'll use a golf analogy for those of you who play golf. So when you go on the golf course, and this is hysterical, so golf has always been promoted as a male sport, just like tech is supposed to be a male industry, or the industry I'm in, it's a very male-dominated industry. These are all like ironies, right? In the game of golf, it's actually the most female-friendly sport, and it's never been advertised anywhere in the countries that we have golf in, because it's always considered like a high-end sport, but it's not. So why do I say it's great for women is because it's a nature-oriented sport, right? You're playing out in the fields. You have a batta and a ball, as we say in Hindi, and you're hitting away balls and, stress management. We were talking about stress management. Now, guys enjoy it more because they're not really aiming. If you ever went on a golf course and you watched how men play versus how women play, it is shocking because it kind of synthesizes behavior patterns and attitudes to the ABCs that, Neha was talking about. So if you see a group of guys playing golf, they are there to actually have a good time, unwind, relax, and network. And they're very good at it because they're relaxed. So they don't care where the ball is going. They don't care if they're at the 6th hole, if their aim is towards the 9th hole. They're just having a good time. Now you take the same example for 3 women or 4 women playing golf on the same course. And I've witnessed this firsthand, so I couldn't even create this. So you have the females teeing up their balls, and just to tee up the ball and hit the first stroke, they will be perfectionists from day 1 and point 1. So they're so intent on being perfectionists in everything they do because they feel they need to try harder and prove themselves harder. They lost the enjoyment of the sport because they wanted the first shot itself to be the perfect shot. Whereas right in the parallel hole, you had these guys knocking out balls right, left, and center, not caring where the ball went, as long as you got to hit it. So I think that's a good takeaway for all of us women. You know, we've all been guilty of this. Don't second guess yourself or have an imposter syndrome because we actually have the goods to deliver. But we are our worst enemies, or not enemies, I would say, but we are not our own champions the way we should be. We should be each other advocates because we bring a lot more to the table than we realize. And our decision making is very clear, but sometimes we have this guilt about perfectionism. And there's a big spectrum between doing something well and doing something perfectly. And I think that's where women have to be taught the idea of balance. So you don't have to do everything perfectly as long as you're gaining the experience. And that's where your confidence will come in, the recognition will come in, and that it's okay not to do it perfectly. Purva, I addressed it in an indirect manner because, you know, when we talk about wellness comes from, in a way, being comfortable in your skin. Whether it's financial decision making, non-financial decision making, life, you know, milestones that you're going to go through in your life. And so if you don't have that confidence factor and you don't have that ability to be okay, whichever way you deliver, the growth will not happen organically. It'll be a forced kind of, you're trying to do what you think other people are expecting you to do versus, hey, this is who I am and it's okay.
I think that's very well put. And I think for all the audiences who are watching and those who are females, definitely have a pump from what Devika, Neha just mentioned. And I think now, looking at the paucity of time that we have in terms of this panel discussion, I would quickly take us on to the last part of it, which is the top 3 round, where the 3 panelists will be requested to give 3, I would be counting it on my fingers, 3 lines, sentences, tips, etc. on things I asked on them. I think the first would be Anupama. Anupama, would you like to, because you are a financial strategist and money coach, give us top 3 tips when it comes to stress management? And I would be, doing a 1, 2, 3, so it's quick and fast.
Yeah, sure. The first point is that a person should create an extra source of income. Corona has taught us that in the past year, many people had this fear of, losing out on their jobs and pay cuts. They were facing salary pay cuts. And then they were at their wits' end, like from where is the next money going to come? So creating an extra source of income is definitely a must do. It could be through a rentals on a property, or it could be your investment returns. Number 2?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. Number 2 is plan for the future. I would second what Devika said a little while ago about creating an emergency corpus. Definitely, surely, 100% rightly must create at least a 6-month monthly expense corpus, an emergency corpus. This will take away a lot of financial stress from most of us. Second is, once this is done, plan for the future, for the goals, your retirement, your children's needs. Number 3, definitely protection. We did not speak about protection as yet. Whatever plans we make, it will all go for a toss. If there is a mishap in the family, if there's a medical emergency, one must invest into a good term insurance plan, for the protection of the family. And second, definitely a medical insurance should be taken. So once we have taken care of these 3 things, I'm sure we should be towards financial wellness. Stressed.
Fantastic.
Stress. Yeah.
Okay, on that note, I think, moving on to Devika. Devika, you come from a background where you talk a lot about, I was impressed to read the thesis of why you call it Sohum, balanced life. Just talking about, quickly giving hints to our audience, what are the 3 must-have financial literacy goals for a balanced life? And
I'm going to piggyback 3. Okay, so the first one would be the emergency fund. I'm just going to tweak it a little bit. So if you're a single breadwinner, you don't have any dependents, you don't have anybody to take care of, a 6-month emergency fund, which is basically cash flows, something that is liquid. So I didn't clarify what an emergency fund is. These are not long-term investments that you are in a fixed deposit or anything like that. These are liquid assets, whether it's stocks, whether it's mutual funds, or whether it's pure cash or cash-like objects, okay? If you're somebody who has a family with dependent kids or elderly parents that you're taking care of, you should plan for at least 1 year of cash flows so that you are not selling assets in jeopardy. You're not being under stress buying or stress selling because your housing market can come down. So be careful about that 6 month versus the 1 year, kind of a fund that you're going to have. The second goal that I would say you should have is make sure that when you're talking about work-life balance, it's okay to make as many dollars or rupees, whatever you want to make, but make sure you have some me time. So work and play have to be in balance, because if you are overworking, you're not going to be able to be as productive in the few hours that you're productive. So having an 80-hour work week is not going to automatically translate into global wealth. It's going to translate into you being super exhausted and being less productive. So make sure, I gave a golf example, find a hobby. Find something that you do outdoors that is a physical activity. Even if it's going for a walk in nature, it recharges your battery. Now, this is a very simple activity, but it's very impactful because it's better to work 30 hours a week and give 100% of your IQ and your intellect to that job than doing 10 things and then trying to be substandard in those 10 things. So pick 1 or 2 things that are true to your points of strength and work on that. The third thing is we talk about asset diversification. Okay, now people talk about mutual funds. We've talked a lot about mutual funds, but there are insurance products too that are hybrid products, because we've talked a little bit about insuring yourself against risks. These are basically insurance products that have investment components with them. You might have these kind of products in the Indian investment market too, but they're very prevalent here in the US. And one of the things that I want to highlight there is retirement. A lot of times, families give up their own retirement goals for the sake of their kids' college educations. That's a no-no. You need to pay yourself first before you can pay for other people. So don't do yourselves and this is, I'm going to take the Indian, I'm going to point this out because we are all guilty, including our parents. Our parents, especially in the Indian mindset, are givers. They're not takers. So what happens is you are first trying to put your kids through a very expensive college, especially now with all overseas educations going on. And then when you are elderly, you're not in your peak earning years, and now you are on your fixed pensions and your fixed income, you cannot be 100% sure that that child that you devoted yourself on your financial efforts on is going to come back and take care of you. Those social fabrics are deteriorating. So the first thing that a parent, any responsible parent should do is, yes, definitely try your best to give your kid a great education, but make sure that you're first saving towards your own retirement so that you have your healthy nest egg and you're not getting homeless in your retirement years, because we are watching elder abuse everywhere. So those were my 3, I think, very important areas that people need to focus on.
Thanks a lot, Devika. I think that's a must-have for anybody else. Neha, you are a big advocate for financial literacy, and there is, no other question that I would ask you than saying, give us the top 3 resources from where somebody could enhance or boost their financial literacy game.
Yeah, I think that, thank you, Purva, for that question. It sort of sums up what Anupama and Devika have been telling and reinstating, and all these are such very important points which we all know about, but sometimes we're hesitant to look at it. Sometimes we just think it's not important, we can push it away, and that's how we sort of keep falling back. But the point is that in order to sort of stay on top of your game, you need people around you to sort of push you towards it. Fortunately, today we live in a world where everything is available off the internet. So it really isn't a matter of, what resources might be constrained to India, what resources might be constrained to, say UK or USA. So I do have some, exquisite resources that I sort of reach out to from time to time. One of my biggest inspirations in financial literacy is Professor Anna Maria Lusardi. She's the president of the George Washington Institute of Financial Literacy. It's called GFLEC. Their website has some amazing resources. She's very active on LinkedIn. She's almost 60, but very, very active on LinkedIn. So today we live in a world where social media is very, very active. You should follow people, again, coming back to some women. There's another lady in India called Ms. Devika. She's the founder of First Global. I am really a huge inspiration. Follow such people on social media platforms because that's where some of the options trading I actually learned was from Twitter. What is MTM? How do you go about making those deliveries? All those kind of things were off Twitter because that time when I was getting into options, it was a very new space in India. So people were very uncomfortable with it. And then again, today, because we're busy and we're traveling, I really love the concept of podcast. We have one of ours where Purva has actually featured as a host, as a guest. She actually came and talked about private equity. And she also mentioned why finance and financial literacy should be taught to kids. And that's how, why OECD talks about that the whole mindset shapes by the time you're 8 years old. So I feel podcasts are a huge, asset. You can listen to them when you're driving, you're cooking. So ours is called Financially Speaking, but I also listen to the Economist podcast. I really like it. And finally, I think books, no matter how much you say, I think that's something that you should always fall back upon. Some of my favorites include The Psychology of Money. There's one by Michael Lewis, which I absolutely love. It's called Flash Boys. I really, really love Flash Boys. Then coming into the Indian context, we have Coffee Can Investing, Diamonds in the Dust by Saurabh Mukherjee. I think these are great assets which everyone I think should really, really get into. And now getting into sustainable finance. So I really like books like Balance, Shift. Why should you sort of invest in strategies which are focusing towards ESG goals so that, we can all work towards climate finance, and at the end of the day, it doesn't really remain a jargon when, there's no polar bears around. So I think it's all around us, but getting in, finding people to talk to, I think that's the biggest way you learn is from peer interaction. So we always tell when we're doing programs at colleges, form your own community, form a finance club. But I think, getting on social media. Secondly, some of the books that I mentioned, including The Psychology of Money, Flash Boys, these are all light reads. Monica Harlan's, I really, really like it, the book by Monica Harlan. She's an absolute inspiration. Baat Paise Ki, even if it's in Hindi, it's called Baat Paise Ki. And again, podcasts and the material on YouTube, you have Rachna Ranade who's doing a lot of work in that space. But just getting a community and fellow friends to talk about and not be uncomfortable with it. First thing is you have to start thinking that money is not uncomfortable. Money is inevitable. No matter what you do, it's a very important life choice and it impacts all aspects. In the minute you start to get comfortable, and like Devika rightly mentioned, it's often about how culturally we've grown up, but how strong our grandmothers were. So imagine having 10 kids in those times and still going out and building houses and those kind of things. So just taking that ownership.
Also, very quick thing, if I may, because Neha, what you said really resonates with me. I just wanted to add just a very quick thing. When you're talking about your grandmothers and you're talking about all these different podcasts and books, etc., one of the classics, if you're into tech reading, is A Random Walk Down Wall Street. It's a all-time classic. So if somebody wants to go technical a little bit, it's not really that technical. It's just very detailed about different asset classes and stuff like that. But I think we are a resource to each other also, right? So I think the very fact that we're here talking about it, I would love to read up on what you're doing, Neha, and what you're doing, Anupama. So I'm learning too. You're always learning, so it's okay.
It's a process.
Fantastic.
It's,
So I
it's a
think
process.
this is a club that we have here already, the four of us, and we welcome any of the audiences to join. Please reach out to Global Spa if you'd like to enter into this close club that is formed today at this panel discussion. One aspect which I would like to put in terms of 2 cents when we talk about financial wellness is something where I think majority of people have a DIY attitude, that we want to do it yourself. I think that's a great attitude to have. It definitely resonates in what Neha said in terms of ABC, an attitude and behavior. To do it yourself, and then with that to be able to build that capability to DIY. However, a definite note to anybody who would want to have good financial wellness is also take expert advice and consultation. So somehow what I have noticed within the industry is that while there are options, while there are stores and shops of experts who will be there to help you if you are in crisis, there are people who go into deep problems when it comes to financial stress and handling what they're doing just because they think they can DIY and they find help or expert advice expensive. So I think that is one mindset that people need to come out of. While DIY is a great thing to build on, it is also a fact that you definitely at most cases need expert consultation and help. And on that note,
Purva, there's a very important thing that you touched on. I'm just going to take 1 second on this. So remember that money is not the end, it's the means. So if you understand that money is the means to an end, you will automatically have balanced decision making. And then since I am a financial planner who does charge fees, I am your case in point. So I always tell clients that don't consider consulting an expert an expense item. It's an investment item. Because by investing the money to consult with an expert, you will probably bypass a lot of pitfalls, which is money in your pocket then by not making expensive mistakes.
And also not have financial
So DIY is good up to a point. Yes.
And also not have financial stress then.
You have somebody to blame then.
So financial stress will be passed on to someone else.
On that note, I think I will be thanking all ladies who have taken our time today to come and talk to us about this topic. It's obviously a part where we are walking our talk, where we're talking about inclusive industry for women, decision making when it comes to financial wellness in terms of an inclusive manner. I think the panel has done a great job. We have touched many great topics. And I think what would happen is these topics are just a roadshow for somebody to pick up and deep dive in, and definitely thanking all the panelists once again to make time and making sure that the audience is taking the best when it comes to wellness and fitness. So thanks a ton and a pleasure to be here. Please feel free to reach out to any of us on LinkedIn if you need deeper or a better customized help. Thanks a lot.